Welcome back to episode 2 of Cosmic Conversations. Today we're reading chapter 2 of the Cryptoterrestrials. Super interesting book regarding the theory that the phenomenon or beings of the phenomenon don't originate from either outer space or other dimensions, that quite possibly they could be our fellow Earthlings, another species that we're not fully aware or fully educated on that lives alongside us. So last episode we read chapter 1 and the foreword as well, and then had a bit of a discussion. So today I'm live taping the show so it can be posted later on YouTube. But without further ado, let's jump into chapter 2. If you have any questions or any cool comments, just hang tight for the end of the chapter and we can discuss your theories. So let's get into it. So once again, Cryptoterrestrials by Tonnies, and chapter 2 is called Misdirection. Every few nights I get out my laser pointer and indulge my cats in a frenetic game of chase. Cats are natural hunters, and they're effectively incapable of not looking at the quickly moving red dot that I project onto the carpet, walls, or any piece of furniture that happens to be in its path. To my cats, the red dot possesses its own vitality. It exists as a distinct entity. While they may see me holding the pointer, they can't, or won't, be distracted by such things once the button is pressed and the living room is suddenly alive with luminous vermin. So they chase it. And if they get close enough, even take swipes at it, I make the dot flee or disappear in what seems like a concession of defeat, which of course only further arouses the cat's predatory curiosity. All the while I'm controlling the red dot, I'm taking pains to make it behave like something intelligible. Just waving the pointer around the room wouldn't be any fun, so I make it climb, jump, and scuttle when cornered, even though the laser's impervious to obstructions. The sense of physicality seems to be the element that makes chasing the laser so engaging, both for the cats and for me. I can't help but be reminded of our continuing search for assumed extraterrestrial vehicles. UFO sightings demonstrate many of the same aspects of a typical feline laser hunt: mysterious disappearances, impossible maneuvers, and a predilection for trickery. The apparent desire to be seen despite, or because of, a technology presumed to be far in advance of our own. More than one UFO researcher has noted that UFOs behave more like projections or holograms than nuts and bolts craft, an observation that begs the nature of the intelligence doing the projecting. According to astrophysicist Jacques Vallée, UFOs are part of a psychosocial conditioning system by which perceived rewards are doled out to reconcile for the dearth of irrefutable physical evidence. The phenomenon, whatever its ultimate nature, obstinately denies itself, thus enabling the very game it's intent on playing with us. We see that sudden spark of red light, we pounce. This time we'll catch it for sure. My interest in UFOs crystallized in elementary school upon the discovery of Gary Kindler's Light Years, an account of the alleged contacts of Swiss cultist Billy Meier. I wasn't entirely sold by Kinder's book, but my interest was piqued, even though the emphatically human-looking extraterrestrials described by Meier troubled me on some unspoken level. And I have actually done a couple videos on Billy Meier's, and there are a few things that point to him being some type of fraud, but nonetheless, it is a very interesting case to jump into if anybody's interested in it. Sorry, I just took a pause from reading there. Let's jump back in. Later encounters with books about exobiology only made Meier's story sound all the more absurd. Not only did I find the commonly depicted greys more convincingly alien, I considered the body of abductee literature infinitely more compelling than the tales of sage galactic emissaries. Even if most accounts of bedroom visitations could be explained in terms of sleep paralysis, there seemed to be a genuine signal embedded in the pop cultural noise. Throughout high school and college, I refined my study of UFO-themed literature and came away thoroughly disillusioned, but oddly invigorated. Classic narratives such as John Fuller's The Interrupted Journey and Jacques Vallée's Dimensions, an expanded version of his seminal mythology analysis Passport to Magonia, convinced me that the believers had it wrong, as did the majority of self-proclaimed skeptics. I've since waded through hundreds of books about the alleged alien presence on our planet and come away largely convinced that we're sharing our world with an advanced form of intelligence. While not necessarily extraterrestrial, this intelligence is certainly not human in any normal sense. Yet it interacts with us in a manner that at times seems comprehensible, which isn't what one would expect of dispassionate observers or mere extraterrestrial anthropologists. That we've seen traces of its existence at all alludes to either its technological fallibility or its concerted desire to be seen. Both possibilities are disturbing from conventional exobiology and ufological perspectives. The aliens, whatever they are, aren't simply visiting, they've quietly taken up residence. The more I researched the history and morphology of alien contact, the more I became convinced the reigning extraterrestrial hypothesis, ETH, was profoundly lacking. But even the most lucid opponents of the ETH, aside from offering vague, albeit endlessly enticing, references to other dimensions and parallel universes, seemed dumbstruck by the phenomenon's absurdity. I had yet to read of a plausible means by which the aliens' homeworld could intersect our own, allowing a steady stream of UFOnauts. I haven't heard that one before. That's kind of interesting. We typically assume interdimensional travel must involve arcane cosmological machinery such as wormhole or Stargate, but I became increasingly drawn to the idea that our visitors' method of travel is less flashy from a technical perspective and more understandable in terms of earthly, if bizarre, paranormal influences. This led to my growing suspicion that the aliens typically attributed to extrasolar planets are less advanced than they led us to believe. In fact, I think a case can be made that we're dealing with surprisingly vulnerable intelligence that relies largely on subterfuge and disinformation to achieve its goals, a theme I attempt to address in later chapters. And we spoke about this on one of the lives recently, actually. The Lion in the Forest. I'll comment on that later, though. And as outlandish as it may seem, I've been forced to wrestle with the notion that our relationship with these others is far more widespread and intimate than even paranoid dramatizations of the UFO spectacle would have us believe. These dawning suspicions are borne out, at least in part, by world folklore, with its preoccupation with little people in our midst, as well as by recent discoveries that suggest the history of our species is more enigmatic than we'd like to admit. We may well share a planet with crypto-hominids that have mastered the art of camouflage in order to coexist with us. More portentously, their agenda might be within our ability to grasp. But to do so, we must suspend the assumption that we're dealing with something as quaint as ET astronauts. The truth, unnervingly, seems much closer to home, threatening to displace our sense of self in a most unexpected manner. I sometimes see my name used in conjunction with the word ufology. Loosely defined, ufology is the study of the UFO phenomenon. This includes disciplines ranging from metallurgy to psychology, from neuroanatomy to string theory. The best UFO literature benefits from the reasoned inclusion of as many perspectives as possible, even those that would seem to refute the very phenomenon under investigation. The pronounced lack of such books is predominantly why it's fashionable for intellectuals to adopt a scoffing, can't-be-bothered approach when addressing UFOs, a most intriguing reaction given that UFO simply denotes an aerial object of unknown origin. Am I a ufologist? I don't know. Maybe. If I am, I should probably qualify the U word with theoretical. There are theoretical physicists and literary theorists. Why not theoretical ufologists? The ufological community suffers from creative anemia. It has a disheartening tendency to refute dissenting voices, even those within its own ranks, with tired screeds of unnecessarily polarize the debate, such as it is, between cautious advocates of the extraterrestrial hypothesis and know-nothing science popularizers who seem genuinely incapable of considering the UFO inquiry outside the cognitive barriers posed by decades of cheesy sci-fi cinema and the legacy of myriad true believers. So it's no real surprise why ufology is marginal. While its luminaries might noisily claim otherwise, ufology collectively wants to be marginal, with the lamentable exception of a few spokesmen who feel the need to explain the phenomenon's intricacies to a wary public, often in the guise of would-be political discourse. The ostensible UFO community remains afraid of stepping into the rude glow of widespread public attention. And it has a right to be afraid. Having dotingly constructed a theoretical house of straw, many ufological proponents secretly prefer the tenuous camaraderie of their peers to the much more exciting prospect of being taken seriously by science. This isn't to condemn UFO research as anti-scientific. Perhaps the only reason the field remains afloat at all is a pioneering effort of such a scientists as James McDonald, J. Allen Hynek, and Jacques Vallée. But the era of genuine hypothesis seems to be nearing an end. The old guard, inexplicably enamored of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, is now engaged in a little more than ideological turf wars. The boons of speculation have been quietly set aside in favor of models that make just enough sense to allow their defenders to issue brittle proclamations with semi-straight faces. Meanwhile, the enigma persists, as always, seemingly just beyond our comprehension, and we have the nerve to wonder why. And so that was chapter 2. Some interesting points that we have not talked about, especially the cat with the laser pointer. I know I've made the analogy before of an indoor cat versus an outdoor cat, and why it would make more sense for some type of species that's advanced to live beyond the cataclysmic events, such as earthquakes, such as tidal waves, such as cosmic rays. It would just make sense, right? I'm not sure. I can't quite remember if Matt gets into it in this book, but it's still quite a cool comparison that UFOs do kind of behave like laser pointers. They're kind of playful, and that's brought up quite a lot in other spheres of media. Like we've heard other ufologists speak about it, and I've even seen one in person with my encounter. It seemed quite playful, almost like it wanted to be seen. It's interesting. I thought it was a cool chapter, and it's a good introduction. I think as we dive a little bit further in, it'll explain a little bit more behind the theories, or hopefully some of the evidence as well. This came out before ufology was still, and they mentioned in this chapter, more marginal compared to some of the other topics. Obviously today it's quite mainstream, especially given all the whistleblowing and the Congress hearings. It's gotten quite a lot of exposure, especially compared to back then. And even myself, I've been interested in the phenomenon since then. I've noticed the other theories have started to gain legs as well. Back then it was mostly just either us or possibly aliens. Are they really here or not? It wasn't until fairly recently that the other theories such as interdimensional time travelers, cryptoterrestrials, as well as Project Bluebeam, as much as I hate leaving that one out, or I love leaving that one out, that one's still obviously a theory up there, which would be classified under us, but interesting nonetheless. And this book too came out, let's say 2009. So Mac Tonnies handed to 2010. So Mac Tonnies apparently was 2 weeks out from handing this in for publishing, and he died mysteriously, which is kind of creepy. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was onto something. Maybe we'll find something in this book that could give us some more information that he was possibly hinting at. It always raises alarm bells when something controversial has the creator of it pass away shortly before it's released. Stanley Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut is the first thing that comes to mind. This one's another one. This is still, again, like I mentioned, this is my favorite theory, but I would say it's still the most almost forgot. It's like the forgotten child in a way. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching Chapter 2 of Cosmic Conversations. We'll be back soon with Chapter 3. And remember, keep asking yourselves,
are they really here?